There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with my wrap-up of my judging of Group B for the semifinals round of the BookTube prize. And let's get started. I will name the books in the order that I received the list. Michael Crummey's The Innocence, Tracy Chevalier's A Single Thread, Bernardine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other, Christy Leftery's The Beekeeper of Aleppo, Yangtze Chu's The Night Tiger, and Anne Patchett's The Dutch House. That was my batch. So I did a big song and dance last year in my results video explaining my philosophy of reading, and I don't feel like getting into any of that other than to say that all book reviewing is subjective. My reviews here will be extremely subjective. I read more for character and good writing than I do for story. Don't need to say any more than that. And the decisions here were very easy compared to last year. No, that's not true. This year, what was difficult was deciding which books I hated the most. I got a terrible batch of books. There's only 3 of them that I didn't hate. And among the group of the ones I didn't hate, one of those was not very good either. So yeah, it was a bad bunch of books, people. I am going to try not to rant. I am not promising that I will succeed in that goal. Let's get started, going from least favorite to favorite. Coming in at most hated, in other words, number 6 on my list, was Yangtze Chu's The Night Tiger. This was just a crappy YA novel full of stupid stuff. Now, admittedly, lots of people liked it, obviously. I hated it, because I hate magical realism most of the time, and this was full of the most cockamamie, stupid magical realism. And I know that's a personal preference, but what drove me crazy was the inanity of the story and the cardboard shallowness of the characters and the ridiculous love plot that kind of took away from any successful resolution of the stupid mystery of amputated digits or whatnot. That is literally all I have to say. I can't tell you how awful this book was, how much time I wasted on this. Oh my God. Oh, calm down, Shawn. So, 1 star, my least favorite book of the bunch, and no, I will not be posting a separate full review of this book because what I just said is all I have to say, boys and girls. Look at the size of that, Jesus. And there's really no difference in the level of my hatred for my second least favorite book, because I hated it passionately too, and that was Tracy Chevalier's A Single Thread. Commercial fiction, what a joke. It's supposed to be a historical novel, really? It's supposed to be set in England in 1930s, really? What a delightful opening chapter, and what a devastating letdown that absolutely everything that came after the first chapter was like a big snooze fest with the dullest characters this side of the last book I talked about. I have a full review of this. I'm too upset now. Watch my review. I get really upset there too, but a little bit more articulate. This too was just embarrassingly bad. Monumental waste of time. And only slightly more successful because there was actually one teeny tiny aspect of the story that was emotionally fulfilling, and that's one of the things that's the most important to me as a reader, is that I care about the characters and that I am moved in some way. Well, this had about 7 pages out of 330 where I did feel kind of connected. And that is so much better than what the last 2 books. Anne Patchett's The Dutch House was an awful novel. It was just ridiculous the way that she went out of her way to make a really standard cliched story about stepmothers and inheritance into something that was different from all the other million books that have been written on this subject, which made a really unbelievable, stupid story and characters that I didn't care about except that. Which still, it's a 1-star read, as were the last 2. But the brother and sister, at the heart of it, I could actually feel that they loved each other. It was palpable. And there's one scene where a character has a health emergency where I actually cared for about 7 pages about what was going on in the story. The rest of it was a joke. Anne Patchett's her finest novel yet. I think that's true. I have a full review of this. And so the one that didn't suck quite so bad, but still really sucked, was Christina Lefteri's The Beekeeper of Aleppo. 2 stars. We're moving up in the world, people. So this is my pick number 3. I don't really feel comfortable that this would advance to the final round because it's not worthy. But at least there was a base level of competence, and it actually held my interest, not only in a negative way. I am not doing a full review on this. I don't have enough to say about it. This is a story of refugees from the Syrian war as they seek safety into Turkey and across Europe and so on, and into the UK. It was a book that really meant well. It was a well-meaning book that didn't land for me. I was interested in the story, but I did not feel emotionally moved by anything that happened, and there was a lot of tragic stuff that happened. I felt manipulated by the writing, that I should be feeling stuff that was not spontaneously arising from me as I read the story, and there was way too many metaphors and beekeeping and a bee with no legs, and just like I just felt so manipulated that I didn't enjoy anything about it. But there was at least a base level of competence to it that the previous 3 completely, utterly lacked. Didn't like it. All right, it's just the luck of the draw, people. I got a bunch of terrible books. So finally, let's move into positive territory for my last 2 picks. My second most favorite, is Bernardine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other. And I really like this. I would say there were big chunks of it that I absolutely loved. And I have a full review. So I won't say much here, but large parts of it, much of it was really, really successful. And then I thought it went on a bit too long. It had a little bit too many characters. And so some of those characters, because it was too much was fit in, didn't get the full treatment. I felt that trauma was kind of treated as trauma on page 32. The character had completely healed from by page 33. That didn't work for me particularly. But on the main, this book has a special place. I almost loved it. I loved most of it, but it was a 4-star read. This is not a masterpiece. I am expecting a masterpiece with the next book or the book after that, because Bernardine Evaristo is a talented writer. This one didn't quite make it into the top tier, but it was mostly awesome. And lots of people thought it was completely awesome, and that's great. So we all read bringing our own criteria and our own experiences and whatnot. And finally, my top pick is The Innocence by Michael Crummy. I don't think that I was prejudiced towards this book because it was by a Canadian writer from Newfoundland, but I thought it was stunning. 5 stars. It is a gritty story set in, I think, the early 19th century, 2 orphan children trying to survive on a little fishing outpost, barely having any contact with the outside world after their parents both get sick and die within a few weeks of each other. And as they grow into adolescence, with very little contact with the outside world, their relationship gets confusing. It was a beautifully told story with some very difficult moments that were difficult to read about. I thought it was extremely sensitive, and I really cared about the characters, and the ending was powerful. I have a full review. This is the best book in the bunch. And I don't think any of these books should win, because I know what's on the Group A list, and I think that Miriam Tave's Women Talking should win the BookTube prize, and I will be a little bit upset if it doesn't. But if my first pick, the Michael Crummy, wins, I would be quite happy, because it's a very richly literary novel that was very, very successful. And yeah, so my 2 favorites are probably the 2 Canadian writers, but I'm not biased at all, people. I really got some terrible books, and I'm sure there are other people out in BookTube land that loved some of these books, but I'm right and you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. It's the interplay of various and sometimes deeply contrasting reactions to what we read that keeps BookTube interesting, but I hated most of mine. Thanks for watching.